Hola, I'm Claudia Romo Edelman.
And I'm Cynthia Kleinbaum Milner.
And this is a podcast, A la Latina.
The playbook to succeed being your authentic self.
Today, the incredible Rebeca Vargas.
She's the Chief Marketing Officer at the Girl Scouts.
And these are the 3 key takeaways of this podcast. Number 1, how she raised her hand all the time to pitch herself for a new job. Actually, she told us how she emailed the CEO of her unit telling her about new business idea that actually ended up being her job.
She shared with us a personal story of leaving her daughter when she was 5 months old with her mom back in Mexico, like many immigrants have to do to come and build a life of their own in the US. She shared all the sacrifices she had to make and how she feels about them now that she can look back at them with perspective.
Number 3, in a world of uncertainty where there's so much language and discussion about this terminology, Rebeca brings a light on what is diversity, equity, and inclusion and how is it different from multicultural marketing and how you should learn how to differentiate it. All of that and more here at A La Latina.
Stick around! Before this episode starts, go to alalatina.com and sign up for our newsletter. We've put together a ton of career advice and worksheets that you can download to manage your career and get to the top in half the time
with half the bruises. A La Latina. Today, a very special guest, my dear friend Rebeca Vargas, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of the Girl Scouts.
Rebeca has spent more than 20 years in the banking sector. She held leadership positions at Citigroup, JP Morgan Chase, and Wells Fargo, and she also spent about 10 years in the nonprofit sector.
Rebeca, it's so great to have you here.
Hola, thank you for having me. Un gustazo, Claudia, Cynthia. Thank you.
So it's a real honor. I mean, honestly, there's a bunch of things that I am just discovering about you, and we know each other. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about you? What made you be who you are, what you do today?
That's a long question, but I'll try to answer a little bit. I am a Mexican, now Mexican-American or Latina in the US, who came to this country 26 years ago.
Wow.
I was born and raised in Mexico City. I started my professional career in Mexico. I studied at the ITAM, and then I joined, at the time, Bancomer, now BBVA. My dream was always to be an executive at a bank at a very, very young age. I would say my first job was actually working at Nafinsa, at a bank in Mexico when I was only 12 years old. It was a program for children of senior executives in the bank at the time. So it was like 40 of us who, during the summer, we had basically a summer internship, but it was a formal internship, paid internship. I had my responsibilities. So that's how I actually started my career at Nafinsa when I was 12 years old. And that confirmed my desire to work for a bank. And then obviously I went to the ITAM, I graduated, I joined Bancomer at the time, and I had the amazing opportunity of being part of a small group of 2 people who created the risk management function. At the time, the bank was involved in derivative products. The bank was paying a lot of money for swaps operations. No one knew what that was. And I had the opportunity of building that team from scratch from the beginning, and then subsequently lead the bank's participation in the creation of the Mexican derivative exchange.
Wow.
So that was in Mexico. And then after working in the bank for almost 5 years, I decided that I wanted to come to the US to do an MBA. I think it was my father who inspired me to come study an MBA. And I came, frankly, with the intention of going back to Mexico right after graduation. And I came more because of the personal experience. It was my desire to leave my home. You know, those of us who grew up in Mexico, we are used to, you stay with your parents until you get married. And I was single, but I was working at Bancomer. And I had the gusanito, you know, the internal desire of coming to the US and having the experience of living by myself and studying in the US. So I came. No surprise, I had like 7 job offers after when I was like, you get the job offers after the first year. So I decided to join Citigroup.
And you wanted to stay in banking?
I wanted to stay in banking, but I wanted to go back to Mexico. And my bosses were waiting for me. I had an amazing experience. Like I said, I worked in building the MEXDER, which is a Mexican Derivatives Exchange. I was leading a team of people. I was director, etc. I just came for the personal experience, really. But then I got a job offer that was interesting enough with Citigroup, and I decided to take it. And it was, I would say, in the beginning, it was a little bit frustrating because it was a management associate program. So I basically, when I left Mexico, as I said, I was already a director, I was leading a team, I was responsible for opening a whole market. And then I joined Citi as a management associate, which is like the lowest position in the organization.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I had to build a name for myself in a different culture, in a different language, having no mentors, no supporters, no one. And it was a very selective program. The reason why I took that position is because even though it was very junior, it was a very selective program. So it was 10, 12 of us, MBA grads from across the country. And the idea was that they were going to take care of us, mentor us to become CFOs across Citigroup's businesses around the world. So it was a very entry position, but it was a very selective group of us, like 10 or 12, and it was very rewarding. But anyway, the first time I raised my hand was when I was working in M&A, mergers and acquisitions for Citigroup, at the time when Sandy Weil was very active and we bought several banks, etc. And among those, we bought Banamex in Mexico, right? I participated in the integration. I was one of the very small group of senior executives who would travel every week to Mexico to manage the integration between Citibank Mexico and Banamex. And when we finished the integration, I raised my hand. I literally sent an email to March Magner, at the time the CEO for the Global Consumer Bank at Citigroup, and I said to her, we now have a bank in Mexico, largest bank at the time in Mexico. The US population is growing, and we are not doing anything to address that population. So that was back in 2001. And I said to her, I want to do something about it. We are in a unique situation. We are the only US bank who owns the largest bank in Mexico. She responded to my email. She said, come, let's meet. And that changed my career. So I had been previously focused on risk management, like I mentioned in Mexico, and then corporate finance, mergers and acquisitions in the beginning at Citi, and that changed. That was a pivotal time in my career where I went from doing M&A to leading Citigroup's efforts to target the Hispanic market in the US.
So in that first job that you raised your hand and you said, I want to market to the Latino population. So that was the beginning of you marketing towards multicultural groups.
Yeah, that was back in 2001, 2002.
That's so much
So
earlier than the
I
market.
became really a pioneer in the banking industry in marketing to the Latino community. I was the first person to advocate for Latinos within the bank. I pitched the acceptance of the Mexican matricula card and Latin American matricula cards as forms of ID to open bank accounts.
Oh, wow.
I did the first TV spots in language. I started building end-to-end capabilities in Spanish for the Latino segment. And more importantly, what I did at Citi, I did a lot of product development to respond to the particular needs of the Latino community. So I created an entry bank account. I created a free money remittance service. We even did a mortgage product with iTeens, a binational credit card. So we did a lot of product development tailored to the unique needs of the Latino community.
I think this is reminding me when we spoke to Jessica Alba, and she was saying that the reason why we need Latinos behind the camera and writing stories is because it's so much easier to build something when you have lived that experience. And yeah, you can have customer research, you can try to understand the customer, but you will never be able to live the experience. And I think it's important to remind executives and CEOs that they have to have Latinos in their employee base if they want to sell to Latinos. Because it doesn't matter how much research they read about how to talk to a Latino, it's going to be a much better ad if you have a Latino writing the ad, shooting the ad behind the camera,
Exactly.
in front of the camera.
As a marketer, I always say you can only market what you have,
Yeah,
right? You need to have the product, you need to have the experience, you need to have all of that so that then you can market it.
But it is clear to me that, like you were innovative and entrepreneurial and raising your hand. How did you navigate it? How did you get promoted all through your career? And what did you do after?
hasn't been easy, but I was able to start, like I said, as a management associate and become a managing director and become one of the 3 highest ranked Latinas in the organization.
This was in
I
Citibank?
was at Citigroup, yes.
Citigroup.
I was the first Latina to be profiled in the diversity report, and as I said, became the highest ranked Latina in the organization. I think it was a combination of things that allowed me to do that. Definitely my drive and my desire to do more. I would get in the office at 8:30 and would leave at 8:30, which is what I was used to do in Mexico, working from 8 to 8. I did the same in the US. So definitely working very hard, always guided by the values that my parents taught me, always acting with integrity, with honesty, hardworking. I think that's the basics. But then also through that, trying to learn the American way. The reason why this is also, I think, an interesting thing that happened in my life, it was an experience that changed my personal life, and it also changed my professional life. My first day at business school, I remember vividly. I had to sign up some paperwork, right? And I was in this office, and the woman on the other side of the glass, she gave me the paperwork and she said, fill them out. And I was filling them. And one of the questions was ethnicity, right? And I didn't know what to put because, coming from Mexico, what you are, brunette, brown eyes, 176, whatever height, right? So I told the woman, I don't know what to answer in this question. And she said, well, you have an accent. What language do you speak? And I said, Spanish. Oh, you're Hispanic. And I said, I'm Hispanic? Yeah. Okay. That was my first day in business school. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I didn't care. I just filled out the form and I gave it to her, and that was it. I graduated, right? And then I went to Citigroup. And I was working in finance, corporate finance, M&A, etc. And I thought to myself, how am I going to progress in this? And I was, like I said, in the beginning, it was a little bit frustrating because I was already a director. I was leading a whole team in Mexico. And then I came here and I started from scratch. So what I did was something that at the time, most Latinos were not doing. Now, most Latinos do, but at the time, they were doing the opposite. And what I did was to embrace the Hispanic woman inside me and to embrace my Mexican citizenship. What I said is, I am going to succeed in this country because I am Mexican and because they do not understand that they need women like me to understand the Latino market, which is a business imperative for the bank. So that's also what I did. A long answer to your question, but it was also embracing my, now I say it, Latina, Hispanic heritage. Mm-hmm. At the time, I would say embracing my Mexican heritage.
But it hasn't been easy, you said.
It hasn't been easy because we work differently, right? Pitching the idea of targeting the Latino segment wasn't easy. It's something that sometimes you get the answer of, yes, you are right, but you don't get the funding or you don't get the support. And I did get at some point in my career someone who said to me, a manager who said to me, I don't understand. You shouldn't have this job because your English is not good, right? And to myself, I kept saying, well, this woman doesn't have an MBA. I have an MBA, right? But it's that constant of like, you have to be confident in yourself and you have to know what you're bringing to the table, and you have to know that you own a seat at the table and you deserve it and you have worked hard for it and you can contribute.
Can you walk us through the big decisions you've made in your career? You've worked in at least 5 organizations for a good amount of time. So how did you make those decisions to leave Citi and then go to nonprofit, for-profit? How was that for you?
So I left Citi because I got an offer from JP Morgan Chase. At the time, Ryan McInerney, who was the head of the consumer bank at the time, called me and they said they were interested. At Citi, I had built the Latino segment. I had done product development and marketing for the Latino segment, and Chase was starting to do the same. Yeah. Charlie Scharf at the time was the CEO for the consumer bank, and he invited me. I met with them, and they said, we want you. Basically, we want you to come to Chase to do the same thing that you did at Citi. And I was pregnant with my first child, my daughter, at the time. And I remember he invited me to have breakfast to tell me about the opportunity, etc. And I was showing, right? And we spoke and whatever. And I said, well, yes, I'm interested, but look at me, right? And again, this is the Latina inside me, right? We come from a culture where you don't, or at the time, I didn't think about, well, I'm going to go on maternity leave and then I'm going to take some time and what am I going to do? And that's not right. And because I was always used to, like I said, 8 to 8, 8 to 9 in the office. So I told him, I'm interested, but I'm pregnant. And he looked at me and he said, again, learning lesson from me, the Mexican working in the US, he looked at me and he said, so what? And I said, well, I cannot start right now. Or if I start right now, I'm going to have to leave for a little. He said, don't worry. We want you. We'll wait for you. So they waited for me and I had my child. And since I was busy at work, etc., I didn't plan the way I should have planned. So my daughter was born. I went to spend my maternity leave in Mexico, which was only 12 weeks. The 12-week comes, and my mom says to me, so what are you going to do when you go back? And I said, well, I don't know. Like, I really didn't know. Like, I had not planned for it because my life was work. And then now I have this child, but I had not planned. Long story short, I decided to leave my daughter with my mom in Mexico. One of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. Now I can say it without crying, but for many years I cried. So that also brought me closer to the Latino community in the US. I mean, I myself experienced what so many immigrants experience. So I left her there for 5 months, and then I came back. I joined Chase. They waited for me. I joined the bank. I had to start rebuilding my name in a different corporation where, yes, I had some people from Citi had moved to Chase, so a few executives knew me, but nevertheless, my team didn't know me. I had to build a name for myself. So anyway, that's
And your daughter came to the US with you
like 6 months later.
That
My mom
sounds
brought her back. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing this. I'm sure a lot of our listeners will want to hear that.
You know, it's interesting. I just had this conversation with my daughter. Like, would you ever forgive me for not being present with you all the time? And because I know how hard I worked and how often I traveled. And she was like, were you not always there? And I was like, exactly. Perfect answer. Thank you. Let's go shopping.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I need to know.
Yeah.
How did you move from Citi to JP Morgan and then to non-for-profit?
I was at a time at JP Morgan Chase where a couple of things happened. One is in the bank, I had been asked to lead an enterprise-wide initiative that was about putting controls in place. And I was not very excited with the work because my nature is someone of like innovative, creative, entrepreneurial. I love marketing, etc. Then they asked me to develop these controls, to implement these controls. Anyway, I wasn't very happy with the role at the time. And at the same time, someone at JP Morgan who was sitting on the board of some organization learned about the need that the US Mexico Foundation had for a new CEO. So she recommended me. So she was a peer of mine at JP Morgan. She learned about this opportunity and she said, Rebecca would be great. The board contacted me and asked to meet with me, and that's how.
But I have a question there. I'm sorry. We don't have enough great leaders in non-for-profits, Latino non-for-profits, because it's hard on the pay. How did you take it? How did you decide to go from corporate banking salaries to non-for-profit salaries?
Very good question. I've always listened to my parents since I was very young. And at the time, I already had my daughter and my son. My son maybe was like maybe 4 or 5. And my mother at some point had sat down me and said, listen, you are very senior. At the time, I was one of the 2 highest ranked Latinas at JP Morgan Chase. It was only 2 of us, 2 Latinas. I was traveling a lot. I was overseeing marketing, communications, and philanthropy for Latin America across 7, 8 countries. So I was traveling a lot, very busy, not seeing my kids a lot, honestly. And my mom said to me, you know what? I am very proud of you. You have been very successful, but you don't see your kids enough. And you will not see them soon because they will leave. And I kept that in the back of my mind. And 3, 4 years later, this happened. The board calling me, me not being very happy with the job at the time. And I decided to leave because of my family. So I made the decision that some women do I thought moving to the non-for-profit world is going to give me more flexibility. I was completely wrong.
Yes.
Completely wrong. As the CEO of the organization and with my internal desire to do new things and create new things, I was completely wrong. I was very busy. I was still traveling just to Mexico versus multiple countries, but I was still traveling. But that's why.
I mean, by the time this podcast goes live, we're probably will continue being in an environment in which D&I is attacked and businesses are kind of like avoiding even the conversation. You were so early on in your companies building the case to invest in Latinos as consumers, maybe building the case to invest in Latinos as employees by you being a rock star. What would you tell our audience if they are working in a company that has eliminated D&I programs, it's not investing in the Latinos as consumers? Like, what can they do to continue with the work that you started and that we are focusing on?
Yeah. So when I started on this, I thought about it differently than maybe the way I do now. At the time, D&I and multicultural marketing were two completely separate things, right? Multicultural marketing was an effort, was a business strategy and a marketing effort to attract more Latino consumers. In my case, to sell more bank accounts, to bank more Latinos, etc., more banking products in general. That was a business opportunity that was so obvious. The 2000 census had just come out, and it was already pointing to the importance of the segment. So everything that I did was backed by data, right? And it was from a business opportunity. This is a segment of the market that we cannot avoid. D&I didn't exist at the time, but I did see the opportunity to highlight the importance of bringing more people, Latinos and everything, to the organization because we bring a different perspective. With my experience having worked in Mexico and studied in the US and worked in different places, you bring a different perspective to everything that an organization does. And the way I pitched that idea was by creating the first employee network at Citigroup. So I was the founder and president of the Hispanic Employee Network at Citi back in 2001, which was the first employee network. And that network had three objectives. One objective was to promote the Latino segment as a business priority. The second one was to promote the recruitment of more Latinos in the organization. And then the third objective was to promote the culture and be like
pride.
Yeah, the pride. But the first two objectives of the network were very important. And that's where we somehow combined the D&I that, again, at the time, the D&I office was just starting to create. But going back to your question, what I would say to people is, the business imperative of the Latino segment, it's there. And all the data is very clear, right? We have the fifth economy in the world. We are the fastest growing segment, number one segment in many industries. So the business imperative is not going away. And those CEOs and corporations who know the data and are doing things the right way know it. And they will continue to do it. They will continue to invest in the Latino segment. What's happening, though, in multicultural marketing is very interesting. Many of us who started doing multicultural marketing 20 years ago, we were always advocating to do more advertising in Spanish and to invest in language, etc. I feel like we were, in a way, so successful that now it has gone 360. Not always for the good, but now there are people in marketing who say, well, the general market is the Latino market. So because the general market is the Latino market, then we don't need to spend on this additional thing called multicultural. We don't need to do culturally relevant messages or Spanish messages, because we just need to include more Latinos in the casting for the general market spots. So again, we have gone, like, people talk about it, but sometimes there is still the risk of them not investing enough in the Latino segment. So my answer to that is, we need to go back to the data and back to prove that in order to reach Claudia, You can reach her mind with English, but you may only be able to reach her heart, her soul, with Spanish or English and Spanish. So there is always the opportunity still to do culturally relevant messaging.
Yeah.
In language or not language, but the cultural relevancy needs to be there. Yeah.
So we have to wrap up, but I would love to know if there's anything that you would like to add. Is there anything that our young Latinas, rising Latinas, or trailblazer Latinas should think about, or anything that you would like to tell them?
Yeah, I mean, for the young Latinas who are out there, never be shy about your heritage. Be proud of your cultural heritage. Be proud of what comes with it. Yes, we cry more, maybe, just like I did, and I say it, and it is what it is, and I don't hide it. Learn to raise your hand. Don't be shy about talking about your experiences, your success, your capacity, your abilities. Say it in the interviews, and then prove it every day. Learn to compete and leverage your heritage background as well as your skills as you work to progress.
Well, I hope that this episode is going to allow people to take a pause and reflect on your own careers and their own path moving forward. So I am really beyond grateful of having you here, Rebeca.
On the contrary, thank you. Thank you both for the invitation.
Thank you for showing that you can succeed and you can live
a la Latina.